What an amazing community, honestly. The support, seriously, I'm not even joking. The support in Comicsgate, I've never seen it anywhere else, and I've been trying to launch professional projects for fucking decades. And just the support around here, we all whip crack on each other too, and keep each other in line. And that's a big thing that separates us from the mainstream, and also pushes some of us to make much better books than the mainstream as well. Is if you take that critique serious, whether it's harsh or light or whatever, you take it seriously enough, there's something you can do to improve on what you're doing usually.
No, totally. And that's the topic that we have tonight is a little bit related to that in terms of, getting together and helping each other out. Because you're doing something that not many others are doing. There are others doing it, but not everyone. In fact, not that many are doing it, which is forming a company out of, CG creators. I think there's, obviously, Ethan's starting his one that's kind of different. It's in its own realm, but like I was thinking more like King Comics. Is it King Comics? The one that Joe King has, and he's released the Mothman books on it, and they've got a bunch of other stuff. I don't know if it's exactly like what you're doing with the shared universe, but I know that they've got a bunch of stuff planned. And I'm not just talking about, a guy like Mike Murphy, who's, the main project manager, and he's getting people to all work on different books. Like you guys are actually trying to start a proper publishing company with different teams working on different books, coming together under the one label. And that's that's Brain Cage. That's a really cool name too. I really like that.
Thank you.
Great
that was
name,
a band name. Thanks. That was a band name I came up with something like 20 years ago, and I just never did anything with it, and it just came to mind. And Kemosabe's so easy to work with, easiest guy ever. When we talked about the name of the company, I said, well, I've got kind of maybe one idea if you like it. I said, Brain Cage, and he goes, all right, mate, that'll do. And that was it. that was our development meeting. So I'm all right, Brain Cage.
No, it was like, all right, mate, that'll do. What do you want like that?
No, it was actually literally just like I said. It was the only time he's only said like 5-word sentence.
Yeah, right. So is that how did you kind of come together with Kemosabe? How did that come together?
It was really simple. I was looking out there, and I was reaching out to creators and doing a lot of one-on-one meetings in Discord or Facebook, video chats, stuff like that, trying to put together a shared universe, creator-owned label. And I looked around, and there were some books I really liked, but those guys were kind of like, well, they didn't have attitude about it, but I could tell, they were doing well on their own. They were up like in a higher bracket. And they were not really wanting to take a chance on a new creator or group of new creators or anything like that. And plus, let's be real, anyone who's been trying to do anything professionally creative for many years has been screwed over by people. There's always been a weak link in a team. I've had many, people get pretty, they don't have any trust. And I don't either, but I have a sort of process I go through to get rid of the people who don't really belong to a team anymore. I've developed it over time. And honestly, I looked around there and I saw the company men, and I thought, what characters would I like to see my characters in the same universe with? And as soon as I saw the company men, I said, holy fuck, that's some cool shit. And I reached out to him, and he was a super cool guy. So I said, hey, let's do this, man. I've got a couple creators right now, I'm helping get started and all this stuff. Because I knew being a new guy on the block, I couldn't come in and expect, bigger name creators to just jump on board. So what I did was, as I was out there networking, getting R&D, making genuine one-on-one connects, a couple guys I met were just really creative. And I saw the signs of true writers, world builders and all that in them. But they had never written before. So I've been working with them. One of them is Daniel. You see, his tag is Zombie Killtrocity. But he's him and I've been working on his title World War Hell for about 8 or 9 months now, and about 3 months into it. Oh
You're
man,
just
World
full of
War
great
Hell is
names.
sick.
Gun Demon, Brain Cage, World War Hell.
We're doing some crazy shit, Mike. In Gun Demon, I'm actually going to include in the campaign a 10-page issue number 0 of World War Hell. So that's going to show the first appearance of Blitzkrieg, which is Daniel's protagonist in World War Hell, and his soldiers called the Hellions. So pretty pumped about that. Basically, Company Men is going to introduce. It's going to fulfill first, so it will introduce the brain, the new Brain Cage audience to how the governments on Earth deal with superpowers, because that's what the Company Men's entire theme is. And then the Gun Demon is going to be right after that, and that's going to start and with the World War Hell issue 0 in it, which will introduce people to how hell and heaven and all that kind of stuff works in Earth in our universe.
Why do you think, like, what makes it better for creators to join together into a company? Why should they do that rather than kind of go it by themselves? What do you think are like the key pros with that?
This is only a 1-hour stream. I mean, if we had 2 days, I could tell you the benefits. But honestly, I'll just kind of sum it up with even the most brilliant person can only accomplish so much on their own. If you've got a team of brilliant people, it just magnifies every angle. You can literally you're gonna get angles that you wouldn't normally have, and it's amazing what the talent we've got on this team so far.
And especially the thing that really caught my interest when you were telling me about this is the whole shared universe side of it. So it's not just like necessarily like Alterna, where it's a company that publishes different stories. This is all going to be kind of having a shared universe in Brain Cage. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. In fact, you're going to see some of the Company Men in Gun Demon #1. They actually come into the story, and you're going to see pretty much most of the books from here on out. You're going to see some of the other characters, because when big events go down in the world, it always bothered me. I know that they're not meant to be in the same universe, but let's take the Dark Knight trilogy movies by Christopher Nolan. When you were watching the third one, how many times were you sitting there going, where the fuck is Superman? Where the fuck's Wonder Woman? Where the fuck's Aquaman?
Yeah, they don't exist.
They don't.
No one ever mentions them. Yeah. Am I forgetting any other of these companies that are forming out of Comicsgate? Have I missed any? What have I missed, Joe?
There's one that I'll be announcing in a few weeks, and when we go public, you'll see other creators attached who most, if not all, of the people in the chat know and admire and appreciate. And it's the beginning of something like what Greg is talking about.
Nice.
And
that's how we're going to defeat the mainstream, guys. That is how we're going to do it right there.
So there you go. You've said that to me a bunch. This is how we actually build something long-term that reaches outside of our little bubble that we're sitting in here in YouTube. You've talked to me at length about that. So this is part of your plan to do that. Like, do something real. And
yes. I'm a tactician, man. I've studied the art of war. It's been a fun thing I've done for decades, just as I'm studying history. I love the art of war, and I like using it. Just kind of I even use it in everyday life, so that people don't take advantage of me and things like that. And I use it in video games to lead large armies, tactics. And honestly, when it comes down, really, it's a psychological battle. To begin with, you want to do everything you can psychologically so that it doesn't have to come down to actual warfare. And then it comes down to controlling resources. So let's look at what the mainstream is producing. Their toys are shoddy. They're embarrassing. I walk into a Walmart aisle, and it's shameful what they call little boy toys. It looks like little girls' toys, basically. And then you look at the comic books. I don't need to tell you guys. You're looking across the board. We've even got awful video games and all this shit going on. So the only way we can get rid of those assholes is if we replace their products with higher quality products. And we're not going to do it with indie looking books. You know, there are some good books in comics. I'm not going to shit on them. There are some good books, but they have that indie look.
Mm-hmm.
And to people who don't know the creators personally and haven't been following them and things like that, it's not enough to grab people outside of Comicsgate and go, "Wow, this is a phenomenon. This is the new thing." You know, it's got to be flashy. If you walk in a comic book store and you see, it needs to be that cover that's on the shelf that goes, "Look at me." You know, and then you got to follow it up with really well-developed worlds, and you've got to honestly, people want crossovers, they want events, and I would like to appeal to some of the creators out there who are probably going to follow suit. I'm not talking about necessarily you, Joe. I was planning on saying this before I even knew you had that kind of announcement. Mm-hmm. But I suspect when people see what we do, a lot of the creators are going to panic and maybe think that they have to run out and do something like this and start doing crossovers. Please, guys, do crossovers that make sense. Don't just throw whatever creator buddy you've got and your characters mashed up together. They're from completely different worlds. Do something significant with the story and the world. Make it work, please. Like, put work into that side of it. I see a lot of weak world building and writing in Comicsgate. There's in fact an attitude that basically the writing is kind of a joke. It's something that like Daniel Kibblesmith people do or something. You know what I mean? It's what keeps it alive, and it's the glue that makes it the art actually matter long term. You know, the art brings you in, but let's be real. Slain the Horned God wasn't just Bisley. You know, that was also Pat Mills' writing. I think that's one of the best written series I've ever read, and a lot of it's the writing that makes it stand out from everything else Bisley did. You know, and a lot of people know that. At this point, if you don't know that about comic books, anybody out there in Comicsgate who's living comic books, you don't know that about comic books, just please hire writers. And I'm not pointing anybody out specifically. I'm just saying, please hire writers.
Or at the very least, hire editors.
Yes.
You spoke about psychology earlier, and Zombie Killtrocity brought up something which I think is interesting. You know, there's always been this idea floating out there of there's going to be an Image 2.0 one day, you know, someone to do what they did. And even though it's, you know, it's a very different situation right now, you know, in some ways better, some ways worse. But the mainstream industry is, in certain ways, it's kind of on its knees right now. You know, they don't have the power that they used to have. And, you know, if there was ever going to be a group of people who could come along and pull off something that was like an actual Image 2.0, you know, something to rival what those guys did, maybe never in terms of the amount of people reading, but maybe, you know, I don't know. It would probably be, you know, in the crowdfunding scene. So you're saying this is the way it gets done, is, you know, real companies, you know, real universes, lots of people involved. You are right about that. You know, when you build these universes, people tend to, you know, that's what fandoms congregate around, and, you know, fandoms is everything. So it's definitely an interesting thought. It's not something that I'd ever imagined getting involved with, because I'd said to you, like, I'm just kind of 100% focused on my own universe that I'm creating here with the Lucent. But I definitely think, you know, there's a lot of story ideas that I see out there that could absolutely benefit from this.
You know, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say one of the other benefits to teaming up is, you know, if I were to go out there and do a book with multiple, you know, or do multiple books with different superhero teams and a whole shitload of characters, I throw a bunch of characters out there, right? I've got to spread my writing and developmental focus across a bunch of characters. So what I get in benefit as a brain cage creator is I've got access to this whole universe of characters that, honestly, all of us creators have a say in the development of this stuff. Like Carlos Villas is right now our main creature designer, for example. Do you mind showing the Destroyer Demon image? I think I sent you on Twitter there. He designed that image. and he's working on some other creatures right now for World War Hell that are going to be revealed soon. He's our main creature designer. Now, what we do, we get in a Discord. We've got a Brain Cage Discord channel. We get in there, and we get Carlos in there, and Daniel and I, and multiple creators, and we're sitting there throwing our 2 cents worth in on like the design concepts, and we keep in mind designing creatures and characters so that they could work in action figures, video games, film, in which my primary talents are actually as a video director. And I've got some, I'm not going to name drop, but I've got a few connects that I'm hoping will use this as proof of concept so that we can start a movie studio and launch a cinematic universe. That's one of my goals. But I want to keep the comic books going as the heart blood of all of it. And a big part of it is quality control. This is another thing that's important. You can't just team up with talented people. You have to everybody's got to be sort of on the right, even if they have their IPs are very different, which all of ours are. We still got to be sort of in the right mindset. Like, here's some other things we agreed on: no time travel and no alternate realities, because those break superheroes. They break superhero universes. I mean, it's great for something like the Lucent. You've got your own universe around that story and everything.
I can do whatever I want in there.
You can do whatever you want there.
Yeah, with a shared universe, the minute they start messing around with time, all the stakes just kind of melt away, and you just get stuck in a loop of increased absurdity, like Terminator. What they're doing now.
There's one valid place you could use time travel in a company like this, and it's if you're going to close the company and you want to just have a story that causes the universe to collapse.
True.
So just end the world. That's what it has to. Yeah. Somehow create absolute zero in space, and that would cause time to stop, because Brownian motion would stop, and just there you go.
One of the biggest things that got me to stop caring about the comic book universe of Marvel was the whole multiverse concept.
Yeah.
Was the multiple timelines and things like that. And I hear they did the exact same thing, even much worse, in DC. But I'm not a DC reader. But I can just remember thinking, well, if this is just one of many Spider-Men or whatever, and it's like it rips the floor out from underneath the whole story, and then you find yourself not caring. And then even if the story doesn't involve time travel, once you've allowed that as a possibility, it taints all other stories for all time. So I like those rules.
Yeah, we want superheroes to be superheroes. Another thing we agreed on, and I know you guys will love this, is no current day politics. There's nobody wearing masks in this earth. There's no COVID bullshit. None of that stuff. Like none of the shit. None of the SJW shit is going on. None of the riots. It's just Earth as it should be right now. If we didn't slip over into fucking clown world. If we were still continuing as Earth was, basically, and then you add superheroes in. I've got to announce something. I'm really excited to announce this. So I've got to tell you guys this. There is a creator who has officially joined Brain Cage that I want to announce. That's Stefani Renee is bringing his superhero character, not Thomas Moria, but another character you have not seen yet, to Brain Cage.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Fucking Stefani Renee, brothers.
I love hearing that.
I knew about it. I was like looking for a Stefani Renee comment to bring up, and luckily he just put one up right there. And he swears he will never do a time travel story.
Greg,
Stefani Renee, bro.
To your point about it, with your shared universe, you have agreed upon rule. That's one of the things that when I was building out my superhero universe, I set some ground rules for myself. And then at some point, CG got big enough that I thought, how cool would it be if I was able to launch a publishing company, and then with the help of my creative team, grow it to the point where I could start employing other people, both people who are trying to break into the business, and also legends of the industry who are either unemployed or underemployed, and kind of reach out to both sides that have been neglected by corporate comics. And one of the things that I thought was, okay, well, how about if I just build this thing up with certain mechanics that make it very easy for other people to bring their characters into my universe? And as long as they agree to play by the rules of the universe, then they're welcome to use, that world or that universe that's already been constructed. And if that can help them get established, then that's fantastic. I'd be happy to do that.
I'll tell you what, once we get Brain Cage going and you get yours going, Joe, and some others follow suit and start doing this, and I'm waiting for all caps to explode at any time. Like, you've got Snowman now, they've got, this is how we're going to do it, guys. And I mean, something we talked about, Kemosabe and some of the rest of us, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say this real quick before I forget, is something we're going to do is we want to do some sort of supernatural stuff too that isn't connected to the continuity. So we're probably going to develop a secondary brand. So it would be something like Brain Cage Extra or Brain Cage something, and that would be not in the continuity of the main story. Because to give you an idea of how closely our characters interact, Company Men characters are in Gun Demon #1. Our other characters are planned on being World War Hell, being in Ben Phelps's book of his character. It's not titled yet, but his character's name is Flicker. She's a speedster. We've got I can't say about Stefani's character yet. We can't talk about that yet. That'll be on him when he can talk about it. See, this is creator owned, so each creator is in control of their IP. The only thing Kemosabe and I, and also James Dean Anderson, is doing is we're putting quality control on it. So I don't give a fuck who the creator is, if they're big name or what. If they come to us, say, hey, we want to be a part of Brain Cage, and I look at their book and I say, well, the pencils are great, the inks are great, those colors are flat as fuck. Why don't you use one of our colorists? We will do that. If the book isn't there, if it's not top tier quality, I mean, you can look at Company Men and Gun Demon, and you can look at the level we're going with the creature design. You can see we're going for top tier. And, whether it's your style of book or not, you can't say that this is not a top tier comic book cover right here. And same with Company Men. And all of our books, I promise you, are going to be that way.
Is there kind of a kind of story that we're going to be seeing from Brain Cage? Because, we kind of get the feeling now from Gun Demon, what I've seen of the art and what you've said about it. Company Men, we've had Kemosabe on here as well. Is it this kind of story, like, fast-paced, action-packed stuff?
All Brain Cage will be fast-paced, action-packed, super-powered, fun. That's what we're shooting for with every book. We're not going to try to do M. Night Shyamalan endings, but I will promise you we do have some events in the future planned that will fucking maybe blow some minds. I don't know. We'll see how reaction is to them, but nothing that's going to break the universe, I don't think. And we've got actually overarching story. See, I had this idea that, you remember the Infinity War, how Marvel ran that originally, the Infinity War series. They had Adam Warlock as the protagonist. And that was what made that event work out so great, because there was this overall protagonist with us, carrying us along the story.
Loved it.
Yeah, that made the event work instead of just throwing all the characters into some shit. So what we're doing is we're going to have each of the major events, which we're not going to overdo the events. We're going to kind of time them. We've got them kind of planned out, across each, apart from each other. So it won't be overbearing. But each different creator in Brain Cage, their IP characters or character will get to be the protagonist of a specific event that they're tied into. So that they're going to be the Adam Warlock, of each of that. Gunny's got one. Some of them will actually share the same one as well, because they have similar villain in their, arch villain in their, in their storyline, their origin story. But we are really developing this years in advance. Just my books alone, I want to launch 2 graphic novels a year. I know I could make a lot more money off of one a year, but I don't believe I could make more money off of one. I believe I could make more off of 2 if money were the motivation, because the thing about it is I want to establish to you guys that Brain Cage is going to produce. So if you get into Gun Demon, I don't want you to wait a fucking year, 2 years, 3 years before you get the next part of the story. And honestly, the way we've got it all planned out, there's no way I could do that anyways, because the story must continue each book. So we want to do about 10 graphic novels a year. And if this does well enough, what you're actually investing in by investing into Brain Cage is much more than just these Indiegogos. I have a plan to bring comic book shops actually to Comicsgate and back us by actually producing a 22-page monthly series for each of our creators, each of the IPs, using different creative teams so we don't slow down the workflow. And we'll produce those, put them in comic book shops, and then that will help advertise and hopefully bring people to Comicsgate and to the Indiegogos as well. It's treating the Indiegogos as like the main event product. So that's one of the plans we've got. After the Gun Demon and Company Men campaigns fulfill, we're going to launch our tabletop battle game for Battlegate, which will have the miniatures and all that. It's going to have its own decks and miniatures in there. But what we're going to do is we're building around the Battlegate decks so that they will be useful in products that come later. So you'll be able to get the miniatures for our characters that will be in these decks you're getting in our first campaigns so that you can play them in the tabletop battle game.
Sounds like you got it all planned out. My goodness.
Pretty much.
It's going to be very interesting. I think Comicsgate, the general landscape we have, is going to be very different in probably a year. It's going to look very different.
Right on.
Mo says, did you notice Bancroft Smack when Greg mentioned Battlegate? He thinks Lucient Jigsaw Puzzle is his ace in the hole.
Well, Mo, we could always increase the number of pieces and make it more challenging. You don't have to just denigrate it like that.
Oh, I thought it would be a fun thing, family fun to do, but I'll leave it up to the chat if they don't want a puzzle.
Although, in all seriousness, a lot of what Greg has said, and I think I've mentioned this when we've had other guests on, a lot of what he said, I have the same goals. And from what Greg has said, it sounds like Brain Cage is going about it in a different way than I am. And I really like seeing different people with very similar goals all taking different approaches, because I think it's just better for customers that way, and potential customers when they come in for the first time and see such a variety of products that are offered. It's only better for everyone involved.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, at the moment we're a bit like a Chinese restaurant menu where you go in and it's like this thick and you got to go through 100 pages. It's too much information. You don't know what you want and you just say, you pick it for me or whatever. So you're exactly right. And what I said earlier about, hey, this could really kind of change the landscape of what we're doing here, because the scene is getting really crowded. Mm-hmm. With new creators, maybe it might become a thing that people gravitate towards certain companies. Like, okay, so you guys will be known as the action, fast-paced kind of comics. So if someone has that kind of comic, they might approach you and say, hey, can I join up? Someone might have other people with different kind of comics. We see manga company forming, and who knows, any kind of genre. It could actually really sort of streamline the whole process. Like I said, like you said, it makes it more professional. You can, and it does open up avenues that otherwise you wouldn't have access to just being a one person kind of show.
And to kind of dovetail on your point, Mike, I'm going to build up an all ages brand where the stories are written for adults, but they're safe for kids, which is how I think comics were when they were at their best and at their most popular, and the industry was at its healthiest financially, and with always bringing in a next generation to come in behind the generation that was kind of moving on. And so I can definitely see a day where in CG and CG friendly networks, you have a group like Brain Cage, whereas Mike, you were saying creators who kind of gravitate towards that type of storytelling would kind of naturally be drawn over into that network, where people who want to tell, like all ages stories might gradually come over and want to work with someone like my company or somebody similar. And then other, let's say, like you were saying, Mike, with manga, they might go want to try and link up with Kyung Lee or Conquest Comics or Ryan Cardinal. And I think it only makes sense that eventually we might see something similar to Image, where although the founders were on their own with their individual studios like Wildstorm and Top Cow and Extreme, they were all under that overall umbrella of Image. We might find ourselves in 3 to 5 years in kind of a similar situation, but taking a completely different route to get there.
Yeah. And here's something else too, is I could see all of our different labels, basically the same artists and writers working for all of them, going, you talk to a guy, yeah, I got a gig over at All Caps, the next couple months, or I got a gig over at Brain Cage or whatever. I honestly, Kemosabe and I are pretty open also to teaming up with other companies in different ways, so we're really wanting to community build. That's really the heart of it all. I came to CG, I saw massive amounts of talent, and I thought, these guys, I see a few community builders, but I don't see a lot of people listening to them. So I knew somebody had to start it. I think for somebody like Ethan, he's so high tier, in the Comicsgate community, it's almost difficult for him to do that because he can't be out there like talking to, like in video chats with just anybody every single day like I've been doing, and jumping in Discord with just anybody with any interest in comics. He doesn't have time for that, so it almost kind of needed to be somebody with community building experience who's a new creator coming in and can get some other new creators and do it. And then that can show people that new creators really can beat the mainstream, who have no background names. Greg LeVitre means jack shit. Daniel Fogarty. These names don't mean anything to people right now, except for people who know us, of course. The last thing I'd like to say, I know we're running out of time. We're looking for writers right now to hire for our writing staff. So if anybody out there is, experienced writer, reach out to me or Kemosabe or any one of us.
Well, man, it all sounds great, and it's been really fantastic to read the chat alongside tonight's discussion. I don't think I've seen the chat ever this just kind of animated and excited, and I think it's like the door is creaking open here of potential. This is obviously very early days. A lot of this is still just kind of talk, but we can see right here, Greg's got art here. He's got a story. He's got partners. This is happening. We've seen companies sort of, taking their first steps, and, and it's going well. And we know the space. We know people, there's enough people out there who want to buy good books and get involved and, get behind a property, an IP, a universe, a company. This is all really, really exciting stuff from my perspective.
Yeah, I'm also hearing, big plans, but taking them step by step. That's what I'm hearing. So
I think
as we
that's
fund your first campaign, as we fund the first 2 campaigns, the Gun Demon and Red, White, and Blue, or I'm botching the name. Sorry, Chemo, I'm botching the name on your book. Anyway, Company Men. There we go. As we fund those 2 campaigns, we know this isn't going to be an overnight thing for everything you've just laid out, which is huge, but we're going to get it started.
Manageable growth is the key to sustained success.
Yeah, it really is. It's got to be.
You brought up George Lucas earlier. He started out with a script and a production company that was willing to make his movie, but he was thinking merchandise and all this sort of stuff at that time, and that's why he became this phenomenal thing that he became. It's because he was thinking big, even though he was just starting to get the ball rolling. So a little bit more thinking like that. I mean, we don't need to have our heads in the clouds and just say, hey, on my second campaign I'm gonna take down Hasbro or anything like that. It's more of the like let's start thinking about these things, because I don't think what's happening now has ever really happened in the way it's happening, like with the whole crowdfunding boom and everything, and just guys like us who were able to come in and end up paying artists more than the biggest comic book companies in the world are paying. That I don't think that's happened before. So we are in a pretty unique, cool situation. And yeah, let's dream big, even if we're going to take kind of small steps to get there, manageable steps. Thank you anyway. Thank you again for coming on. This is a really good discussion.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this. And thank you, as always, to the chat, Sexiest Chat in CG. You guys came out full force tonight, so I can't thank you enough.
It's a bunch of alpha male champions right there in the chat, brother.
Hi guys, The Lucent Waking Dream is my 60-page graphic novel. It's available now in demand on Indiegogo. Every backer not only gets the main book, they also receive a 10-page preview of the second book in the series, Painted Death, plus 2 full-color prints. You can also find me on Twitter @TheLucentComic. Why not come hang out with us?